So today we're here with
Jay Spoonhour.
Jay is the EIU men's basketball coach. So tell me a little about yourself, Jay.
Well, let's see. 3 kids who I'm getting to know a lot better since we've all had to stay inside for the last 2 months. A wife that probably knows me too well now at this point. And been at EIU now for 8 years, and love everything about the school, love everybody about everything here. I've been hoping that we can get ourselves back out and start being outdoors again.
Where'd you attend high school?
I went to Springfield, Missouri. My dad was the head coach at Missouri State when I was in high school. So Springfield, Missouri, Glendale High School. And I actually went for a short time. My folks were divorced, and so I was with my mom in Iowa at a real small school. We had 17 kids in my class. And so the basketball, as you can imagine, wasn't great with only 69 or 70 kids in the school. So that's why I'm transferred down to be with where my dad was at a big school.
So we're going to talk a lot about your EIU days of coaching now. You've been there for 8 years at EIU. Describe the process of behind the scenes of how you got the job.
It's anytime you're going after a job, there's all kinds of different ways that it may happen. Sometimes you're on the staff and you get moved up and you have all this stuff. So this one, the athletic director, Barbara Burke, had known me prior to coming here. But it wasn't that we knew each other well. She knew when I was an assistant coach for my dad at UNLV. I actually took over. My dad got sick, and I took over for a portion of the year. And we played Wyoming, one of those games, and I was coaching then. And so I'm not sure she locked it away or anything like that, but she at least knew who I was. And so I applied for the job, but not thinking I would have any chance. I was a junior college coach, and typically when you're a junior college coach, you're going to be in junior college. And so the whole process was a typical process in terms of the interviews and all that. But it ended up that I was her guy. I'd had a lot of other shots at jobs where I thought I could have gotten the job. I didn't get it because I wasn't their guy. So this is how this would work.
Where were you at before EIU?
I was at Moberly Junior College, which is in Missouri. Prior to that, 100 places. A few places with my dad at UNLV, at St. Louis University. I was at Valparaiso for a while. My first head coaching job was at Wabash Valley down in Mount Carmel. So I did have one stint through Illinois, but as a life and assistant, I was everywhere.
Talk about the recruiting process of how everything works for you on that.
Well, your typical, every recruiting situation is a little bit different. It all boils down to the same idea as kind of getting a job where you've got to make a kid see himself at that school, and there's sales that goes into it, but it's also making kids feel comfortable, but picking out the parts of your school or your community or your institution that are going to fit with that kid. And it's different for everybody. A lot of times for a lot of guys it's geography. You'll get into it's because it's close. There's guys on our team Josiah Wallace on our team from Marshall. It is a huge thing that he gets to see have his folks at every game. A little bit of the same way with guys that are maybe from Indianapolis or whatever. But then you also have some guys that have never seen one of the guys from New York City who's never even heard of Eastern Illinois. So I think for some people it's community, for some people it's small class sizes, for some people it's that they know one of the assistants and they like them. Every now and then it's because a guy likes me. Not often, but sometimes. But that is kind of how it's for every guy. It's a little bit different.
Talk about your dad, Charlie, a little bit. He's a coach somewhere else, and name where he was at.
He was I'll go backwards. He ended his career at UNLV. Prior to that, he was at St. Louis University, and then prior to that, he was at Missouri State. That was his first head coaching job in Division I, and he got it kind of later than most. I think he was about 43 or 4 or so when he got the Missouri State job. But he was there for about 8 or 10 years. St. Louis about the same, maybe 6 or 7 years. And he always did really good. He was actually probably more well known for telling stories, more well known for clinic speeches and things like that. But he did have some awful good teams.
So I really wanted to hit on the game with Murray State. Talk about that game. You guys were down by 27 points, and it even made ESPN for Josiah Wallace's comeback threes. Talk about that game a little bit.
Well, start with the fact that I basically had taken Josiah Wallace out of the game because the game was on a Thursday night, and so I almost started taking just everybody out because it's 27 points with 10:53 or something. And I don't think we put Josiah back in until about the 5-minute mark because it didn't feel like a comeback until I did put him back in when I thought, we could have a chance at this. I think it was, even at the 5-minute mark, it was still 16 or 17 points. It doesn't feel like you're going to win. So when people said, what does that feel like? It didn't feel like a comeback until the last minute, to be honest with you. I mean, it was still, with a minute, I think it was like an 8-point game. That's really sort of the way it went. It was, we were so bad for so long, and they were really good. And it was like 53 to 26. It's over. I mean, and we had a timeout at about the 11-minute mark, and everybody asked after that, what did you say at that timeout? Because that's sort of when it turned. And I said, if we don't start doing something, we're going to get beat by 50. And that was it. It wasn't about getting back into the game. It's like, let's not get beat by 50. And then they asked, at what point did you think that you were going to come back? And I said, with 38 seconds, I thought maybe we had a shot. Because they threw it away with about 30 seconds, and it was still a 6-point game. But a lot of guys made plays. Josiah Wallace made numerous plays after I finally put him back in. But man, Kayshawn Charles hit the shot to ultimately tie it. Guys made steals. Really, everybody on the team that was on the floor made some play, some sort of deal that got us back into it.
Talk about this past season in general for basketball for EIU.
We had a good year. I mean, we had a whole new team. We had it's a strange roster makeup in that we were the only team in Division I that had no freshmen or sophomores. Our entire team was juniors and seniors, and so part of that was by design. The world's a little different now in basketball, well, in college athletics anyway. That people can transfer at a higher rate than they used to be able to. There are certain types of guys, if they transfer, it can actually hurt your program, and so some of that is by design, that we don't have as many underclassmen because they're the ones that are more likely to transfer. So it ends up that we have a group of guys. We end up having our fastest team. We were really kind of rolling along and beating some good teams. Had beaten Milwaukee on the road and beaten Western Illinois on the road by a big margin. And then we lost one of our real good guards, a guy named Dang. He tore his Achilles midway through the Milwaukee game. That really hurt us. It took us a while to figure out, because he was our best defensive player, and it took us a while to sort of get our bearings. I think we lost maybe 3 in a row right after that. But you end up with a 17-win season, and we haven't had very many winning seasons here. So it's like the third one in an extended period of time.
Talk about some of the freshmen coming in, like Josiah Wallace's younger brother, Jaden.
Yeah.
What are they going to bring as far as some talent to the team?
Well, talk about Jaden Wallace and Isaac Miller. Both are local guys. And
Charleston, yeah.
Yeah, Isaac's from Charleston, and Dad's a ball coach. And Jaden, like I said, I think the chance to play with his brother is probably a big deal. And Jaden is he's on that edge where, do I want to go try to get recruited again? And you could go to junior college and get recruited again. He could probably get at this point get on a smaller college team and be able to play more. But I think being able to be here is a big deal to him for now, and we'll see. I mean, I think he's got a lot of good basketball ahead of him. I mean, he and Isaac both are guys that they're going to mature, and they bust their tail. So we'll see how it goes. That we've got, like I said, we have so many returning guys. I mean, we've got 8 guys back, but we lost 6 guys because of all the seniors. So our we have a lot of returners, and we have a lot of incoming guys. I'm pretty excited about what we got going on.
Name some of your favorite gyms to coach in.
Let's see. Well, we're supposed to play at Kansas. I've been to Allen Fieldhouse 2 or 3 times. That's about as neat as it gets. I mean, I was an assistant at Missouri, and so the Kansas-Missouri game is about as big a deal as anything going. At least it was when they were still playing. But you would go to Allen Fieldhouse, And most every team gets to the arena about an hour and 15 before the game. And when you'd go to Allen Fieldhouse and go out there, typically there's no one in the stands. At Allen, it's completely empty also, except for the student section, where there's about 6,000 people just packed into one corner, and they boo you the minute you come out. And so you got 6,000 and then just empty seats. And that's a neat thing. Everybody always says you got to go to Cameron. I'm in no hurry to go there, because I don't think I'll be coaching Duke, so I'm not going to go in there and play them.
Those Coach K days.
I'm not going to take a team in there. I can guarantee you that. Playing Assembly Hall, we were there a few times with when I was at St. Louis U. That's a pretty neat deal. When I was at St. Louis, we played Illinois at the Dome in St. Louis. There were 49,000 or 50,000 people at the game. That was an unbelievable thing. There's lots of good places, lots of good gyms.
Did you ever meet Bill Self?
Oh yeah. I mean, he coached at Illinois when I was at Wabash Valley, and I actually had a player that he was looking at. I met him actually when I was in high school. The first time I met him I was in high school, and he was an assistant at Oklahoma State, and he and my dad's group all sort of ran in the same group of guys. So I would bump into him every now and then. I'll tell you the one thing about him. He's got an absolutely amazing memory and an amazing. He recalls names and things as well as anybody I've ever seen. And he saw me 10 years after first meeting me, and remembered my name, which I thought was unbelievable. I mean, he met me when I was 17. He saw me when I was 30, and he remembered who I was.
Talk about some of the bigger names that you met, not just Bill Self.
Oh, everybody that I would meet always would be through my dad, and he was a well-liked guy. Again, like I said, my dad was probably more well known for telling stories and for hanging out at the Final Four, maybe than anything. Maybe that's the best thing to be known for. But my dad's best friend in life, one of them anyway, is a guy named Bob Huggins. Hugs coaches at West Virginia and is a pretty popular guy. My dad ended up being friends with darn near everybody. Coach Henson, Lou Henson, came and spoke at our clinic at St. Louis U, and so what I ended up doing lots of times was, as a younger guy, I was a valet. I mean, I'd drive guys to the airport or pick them up whenever they needed something, or if guys lost their keys, I would go get that. That was anybody that sees me. It's hard for them to place me because they can't remember who I am. Oh yeah, you're the guy that ended up going and making sure that I found my hotel room, stuff like that.
So what do you enjoy so much about being the coach for Eastern Illinois?
Well, I like the fact that, I think our fans here, our folk, everybody around, it's not like we've just had unbelievable winning seasons and been great. I think our fans are an understanding and patient group of people, and I think they appreciate that we've had good guys. They appreciate that we've had people that we're trying to do right. They're no different than anybody else. They want us to win games and do well, but they also, I think the folks here, they want you to have teams that they can be proud of, and the teams that act right. And we have done that. We haven't always had real good teams. Last year was a winning season. I think next year's going to be a really good team. Next year's going to be, we got a chance to be awful good, and we've been right. We have stayed right in the middle of the league, and I'm as tired of it really as anybody. Being in a way that there's some point to that's an accomplishment, because there's some awful good teams that are that are above us. That it's a hard thing for us to crack because we don't have necessarily what everybody else has, but we're doing pretty well to be where we're at in the league. But I'm ready to do a little more.
Describe the obstacles that you have involved in coaching.
Oh, the typical obstacles that everybody has is just like kids and players in general, and just young people. Things change. Pretty much on every 2 to 3 year basis. Kids are really going to be different, and because of just the way things are, there's, it wasn't 5 years ago that, that nobody had, or 6 years ago, nobody really had iPhones. Now you don't find anybody without an iPhone, and then you go back before that, and it's, whatever it may be, anything with technology changes things, and so now, like, the biggest thing is that, there was a time when phones were on the wall, And if you wanted to call a girl or whatever, you'd call the house and you'd hope the dad didn't answer, and all those things. And now it's not the way it is at all. I mean, you never ask anybody face to face anything, and so we end up coaching guys face to face. I'm not texting guys that I want them to block out, and so you end up getting on guys, hollering at guys. It's saying anything verbally, not just hollering at them, but just trying to pass along information and trying to teach people. People are learning differently now than they used to. It's not all done verbally. It's not all. A lot of it you have to do on video and things like that. And so, just constantly learning how and figuring out how people learn and figuring out how to teach them is maybe the biggest thing. People will get into a deal where they say kids are different, and they almost always mean that to mean that they're worse. And I don't believe that at all. I think that everything is. I think there were bozos and bad guys 40 years ago. In fact, I know there were, because I've been around some, and I remember my dad talking about them. There's just as many great guys and hardworking guys. I have a whole team full of guys that do right, and so I don't buy into the thing about kids being worse than they used to be. It's the same old deal. Kids, they want the same stuff. There's way more distractions and different things that are maybe pulling them away, but they typically want the same stuff.
As a coach, what advice would you give to a younger kid about playing sports?
You know what? I was talking about this today because my kid was out playing baseball, and you can get so consumed with the external stuff. Let's say you're a high school guy and you're a good player at whatever sport. You can get so consumed with, well, what am I averaging? Did I get on social media? Am I getting recruited? Who's recruiting me? Once you start doing that, you're getting into the business end of this. The business end is not near as much fun as the end where you go out and just play. And it's such a limited time that you get to play. That it goes so fast. You're a young guy, but it was just a few years ago you were out there playing ball. And now you can still play, but nobody cares. That's the thing I always try to tell my guys is like, hey, look, the days of people caring whether you shoot it and make it, you're getting ready to be the only one who cares. You're going to be like in a gym and there's nobody cheering for you when it goes in. The days that people cheer when it goes in are so limited that you need to really, really appreciate it and value it, because it doesn't happen it just doesn't happen for very long. And a lot of times while we're doing it, just like anything else, I mean, you don't value things while you're doing it, but man, I really want guys to understand that, man, and just enjoy it and have fun with it while you're doing it, because the real world's coming fast, and you're gonna have to work, and there's not that much fun in the real world. Playing ball's fun. Enjoy that.
With everything going on right now, I know it's a hard time for a lot of people, but with coaching, what has it done to change your life?
Well, I don't know. My whole life has been this, and going all the way back to when I was a kid, this is all I've ever really known. The one thing I always thought was really cool about it, and the thing that made me want to do it, was the fact that my dad had a job that other people were interested in. I thought that was a really neat thing. Like that people were, when I would go to school as a third grader, the teachers would ask or would say, hey, your dad messed up last night, or he was really great, or the team was really great, whatever it was. They were talking about what happened the night before, and they were interested in that. And I always thought that was a really neat thing. And so I think there's the obvious stuff that, like, when you can, I'm going to tell you, the thing that feels the best about any of it is not the winning or any of that. It really is not. The best thing about coaching, and it's the same thing for a teacher, is when you see a guy get something that maybe he couldn't do before, and you had some part of that. That makes you feel good. If you see a guy, I love when I'll see guys who maybe we didn't like each other when I was coaching them, but when you talk to them, I talked to a guy the other day who I coached 20 years ago, and we talked about stuff that we were mad at each other at the time. I was yelling at him, he yelled back at me, and we're going at it, but we were just laughing about it 2 days ago. And that's the other cool thing, is that you share some intense moments with some guys that nobody's really that, there's not many jobs where you get to go out and scream at people. I mean, how many jobs, it's just an accepted thing. You just blow up on somebody. Well, it's that way in coaching. And so you end up having these combative relationships with guys that maybe aren't that great. They're a little acrimonious at the time, but they really, years later, can be kind of neat. So I'm looking forward to that with some of the guys we currently have, who we don't particularly like each other, but it'll come around.
Talk about your assistant coaches.
I've got 3 assistants. I'm going to have one of the guys. Let's start from here. Logan Cook, who played for us last year, is going to be a GA for us next year. And then Justin Brown has been with us for, this will be his 3rd year. Justin's been, all 3 of my guys have been junior college coaches at one form or another. And I'll tell you why. It's not totally by accident. We don't have the biggest budget there is. In fact, we have one of the smaller ones. And so you can't have people that are used to just spending lots of money and flying around the country and seeing guys and having big ticket items to get a player. Their main job really is to try to attract players and then to work out the guys that we currently have. So like Justin Brown is a guy who is used to recruiting without a huge budget, and you have to be able to watch guys on film, and you have to be able to determine whether or not that guy can help you. You have to know a lot of coaches and take their word for things. Justin can do that. It's the same thing with Matt Bringman, who started with us last year. He's been at junior colleges in Florida. He was an assistant coach at South Plains in Texas, and it's the same exact thing. Is that he knows people that like high school coaches in Indianapolis, where he coached in Indianapolis. He knows guys that he can rely on and help him recruit without having to fly out every time he needs to see someone. And then Rand Chappell has been with me the longest. He's been here 7 years, 7 of my 8 years. He played for my dad. He and I have been friends and known each other since it's for 30 years almost now. And he's been a head coach and won a ton of games at every different level. And so having him is a real impact for us, because he's been a head coach for so long. He sees things before they happen.
Talk about, have you ever met Jimmy Garoppolo and talked to him in person?
Oh, I met him. I never did really. Our talk was while he was a student, and so it was just like, hey, how you doing? But there was no doubt how great he was. But even then, I can remember saying to Dino, when Dino Babers was coach here, I can remember just saying, because I didn't know, and it sounds silly to even say it now. I'm like, can he play in the NFL? And Dino said, are you kidding me? I said, seriously, I didn't know. I mean, you're watching a guy out there throw it around, and it seemed like everything he did worked so well. And I thought, that guy really looks like he's a good player, And Dino said, oh, he's unbelievable. I mean, Dino knew from the very beginning of seeing him. Dino came the same year I did, but he was, in the football season prior. He knew about him and knew how great he was. And what Dino did and what Jimmy did, you talk about going together perfectly, my Lord. And then Eric Laura is in our athletic department now. I mean, what a great mesh of people to meet at that time. I mean, it was so much fun. I can remember I never sat up in the press box, but I sat in the press box for, I'm not sure which game it was. It was one of the playoff games his senior year. And there was a fade pattern in the corner. I guess it's a corner pattern. So there's a corner pattern. Jimmy's standing on like the 30-yard line, and there was a blitz. And I mean, I'm at the same angle as Jimmy, and I'm watching this linebacker coming straight up the middle, and Jimmy had to wait and hold the ball until the guy made his break so he could lob it in the corner. And he stood there and looked at this linebacker coming at him, and then threw it as the guy was hitting him right in the face. And I mean, drops it. I don't know if it was to Laura or not, but drops it right in his hands. And I happened to be standing behind an NFL scout. There was a row of NFL scouts. And I just saw the scout look down at his book and make a star. He went right to number 13 or whatever Jimmy's number was and just goes, star, which is, for an NFL scout, it's like the highest honor you can give somebody. Like, that's all we need to know. And it was, I'm sure he made many other plays that were unbelievable. That one, to me, because I saw what he saw, I just thought, gosh, this guy's unreal.
The crazy thing about it is he's obviously the quarterback for the 49ers, but he played in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, against Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. And that's crazy.
I know. Unbelievable. I mean, like, I think it's so cool that when we got to see all that stuff, I mean, he was at a different level. He was like hitting a guy who's open's one thing, hitting a guy who's covered is another thing, hitting a guy who's covered and hitting him in stride so he can get another 10 yards. That's the stuff Jimmy was doing.
Is there anything else you would like to share or any memories you have received that you want to talk about?
Okay, let's talk about this. So, just so we're talking another basketball thing. So
Mm-hmm.
you had asked me about just favorite games and different
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And we have these games in basketball, in college basketball. You have these things called guarantee games, and it's a game where if I say, hey, I'm going to go play University of Milwaukee, we'll go to your place and then you come to our place. Those are called home and homes, and that's how it works. Well, sometimes if you are going to go play somebody that doesn't want to come to Charleston, they say, okay, we won't come to Charleston, but we'll give you money. And so that's called a guarantee game. And that's typically when you'll see small teams play big teams. Big team says, come on up, here's your check, hit the road. So you don't win those games typically. Those are not, they don't give you money to then go win those games. And we've won, since I've been here, we've won 3 of them, I think. 3. We've lost a lot more than 3. But one of the really good ones was the Missouri game that we went to Missouri and we beat them. And it was great. It was great because they paid us a lot of money to do it. But what happened in the game, it was, if you remember 2 years ago, there was a terrible, terrible ice storm right through here. How much time do we have on your phone? Do we have enough time?
Yeah, we got time. Yep.
Okay. So it was a terrible ice storm. And we got to St. Louis. We had a little meal halfway, stopped at something, a cafeteria of some sort. Got back in the cafeteria, drove literally 10 minutes, and I mean, it's icing so bad that cars can't even sit on the interstate. They're just cars, you're sitting there on them and or watching them, and cars are just sliding off the interstate, and they're sliding into not even trying to drive, and they're just sliding into the ditch. And basically the interstate was just totally locked down in I think it was about Warrenton, maybe Forestell, somewhere around there, right? So we sat there and we sat there and sat there. But this time, I think it was about 5:30 when we sat there. Well, at about 11, we hadn't moved. We sat on there for it would end up being 7 hours, but we'd sat there for 6 hours or something. And I'm calling the University of Missouri, and the coach was a friend of mine. I said, look, I don't know when I'm going to get there, but the game at this point was the following night. And I said, I don't know when I'm going to get there, but I guarantee you that this ice will probably melt before tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. Before tomorrow night at 7, we may be driving straight in. We might not look so great, but we're coming, all right? Don't worry about it, because if you don't play the game, you don't get paid. We needed to get paid. We'd already spent all the money. So we just sat there, and well, about 4 o'clock, I mean, we'd been sitting there for now, I guess, 2 hours, and we'd just come from a meal. So 2 or 3 hours later, the guys start getting hungry again. Hey, coach, we're hungry. I'm like, I don't care. You'll be fine. Because I'm thinking it's going to be, we'll be moving along shortly. Well, 4 hours later, hey, coach, we're hungry. I said, I know, I am too. So we end up having to send a manager to jump over one of those interstate fences to go get some tacos. He goes and buys tacos, throws them over the 50 tacos, or goes in and orders 57 tacos, throws them over the fence. We all cheer and everything. We have no idea how he got back, but I mean, it was like the craziest. So we get to Missouri, and they had no fans there because everybody was iced in, and so they weren't really ready to play, and there was nobody in the stands, and we ended up beating them. So it ends up being like one of the, I don't know if it was one of my favorite, but it was one of the weirder games for sure.
So this is Jay Spoonhour. He is the EIU men's basketball coach. If you ever want to talk to him, he'd be happy to talk with you about anything basketball. Jay, thank you for your time. I look forward to talking to you in the next winter season, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you, Rep King Media. Way to go.